Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Monday Discourse for today, August 23rd, 2021. I'm your host, Tristan. I run the YouTube channel Step Back History, which recently passed 100,000 subscribers. Recently, it was like a month ago now. But, yeah, good times. Good times. I stream on Mondays and Tuesdays. Mondays from 12 till 2. Monday Discourse with Mia Mulder, which you're watching right now. She'll be joining us shortly. And Tuesdays from 7 to 9, I do Step Back Tonight, where we go over the news, watch some videos, and have a discussion and answer questions and that kind of thing. If you want to support my work, you can do so through Patreon at patreon.com/stepbackhistory, or you can do a Twitch Prime subscription with your Amazon Prime membership over at Twitch. You get one free one per month. Do it on some sort of independent creator. If you choose me, I'll be very grateful, but please use it. Don't give Bezos your money for nothing. And, God, what's next? If you want to see my latest video, it's on cryptocurrencies. It's out now. It has been out for about a week or two. And my next video, which I have titled, at this point, The End of the 9/11 Era, comes out sometime this week. I'm waiting for sponsor approval, but if you are a patron, you can watch it right now. It's available on my Patreon for all patrons with no ads and no sponsor breaks, so get in on that. And God, what else? Oh yeah, and if you have any questions to submit for future streams, I hang on to these questions for like a month, so you can go to, oh my gosh, I'm just going to go open up Notion and get the link for you and put it in the chat. Okay, streams. You could tell I was really prepared today. Okay, here we go. God damn it. Come on. I wish to copy the link, not... There we go. So, yeah, there's the thing where you can submit questions. And if this is your first time here, please make yourself known because we have a really great and supportive community, and it'd be very great to see you guys come out. So, yeah. Okay. Let's get, with all further ado, let's get, if today, the Eternal Dan, thank you for being, coming here for your first time. I hope you're having a good time. All right, but I think we know who the star of the Monday Discourse is. Let's get our Discourse Queen Mia in here. So, let's just launch that.
Hello.
Hello.
Is everything working? You can see me, you can hear me?
Yep. We're all good on my end.
Lovely. All good on my end too.
Well, first I guess we should start by you telling all these nice people who you are, as if you need an introduction.
As if I need an introduction. I am Mia Mulder. I do YouTube videos.
I've heard of this about you.
Yeah. It's one of these like weird niche things that some people on the internet do.
Mm-hmm. I just
they'll
had
record videos of themselves and publish them online. It's weird, but it's a weird hobby that I do.
Yeah, I just had the worst, the most terrible moment ever yesterday, where a friend of mine said to me that her stepson wants to be a YouTuber, and he's like, I don't know, he's like 12 or something, and makes videos of him playing Minecraft or something like that. I don't know exactly what it is. You know, something that a 12-year-old would think is content.
Yeah.
And, like, at one point they were like, do you want to, like, talk to him about, like, what kind of, like, advice he should do to grow his stuff? And I'm like, no. Don't do it. It's the worst.
That's the only advice we have. Like, don't. We don't need the competition, but also.
Hey, the Eternal Dan, thank you for subscribing with a tier 1 subscription. Much appreciated. Yeah, because it was the wildest thing. But yeah, everybody, watch Mia Mulder content at miamulder.com.
Yes, that's a website that I have.
miamulder.se.
miamulder.nu.
There you go.
Which is just like miamulder.now in Swedish. That's not a thing. I don't know what happens if you go there, but...
Oh, man. Okay, we've got some fun discourse today. We've got a couple discourses today. There's more COVID news on my end, but the biggest one, I think the biggest one, most important and most important to do is we have returned to the age-old question, and that is, if you do not live a life like Diogenes, if you have a material condition anything better than Diogenes, you're obviously not a socialist anymore. That's the new rule. Someone bought a house, and this makes this is bad for some reason.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people being like weirdly angry about this one streamer getting buying a house, which is like, you can always make a statement about like how rich people sort of flaunt their wealth in a sense, and also sort of take advantage of a housing market that no one really can take part of. But I feel like taking those like big systemic issues and sort of like concentrating them on one person and one house sort of undermines a lot of like real discussions about these types of issues, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to kind of bring everybody up to date for people who don't spend too much time on the internet. First of all, congratulations. Second of all,
take advantage of this time. It's a good time.
Yeah. Hassan Piker, who formerly worked for the Young Turks, the media thing, not the genocide people, started streaming. He became really famous, and he was able to make enough money that he bought a house for himself and his parents in Hollywood, West Hollywood, and. The main thing that there's so many compounding factors on this, but essentially the house is, people are telling me it's an expensive house. It's a $2.7 million house, which is that's a lot of money. Although I think that my entire scale is thrown off because I live in Toronto brain, where $2.7 million is like a 3-bedroom condo, and probably not a nice one. I've seen sheds, every time it makes the news, an actual shed selling for over $1 million. So,
reminds me a lot of the Stockholm housing market.
Yeah. So there's a few things that seem to come up, which is one: are you a socialist if you buy house? I would like to hope not, because I am a socialist who bought house.
Yes.
But then if
which means I am the only true leftist on this podcast now because I rent, which is the only way to be a leftist.
The only way to truly be a leftist is to give landlords money. That is the trick. The other thing is, okay, if you are then is there a point then when you are making too much money or you have too expensive a house to be a socialist? In which case, we've had all sorts of discourses, like a wonderful person who made the claim that if you bought a house for more than $500,000, that you are bad. You are bad man who buy bad house. In which case, okay, where did this number come from? And two, it's a lot of ignorance of what the point of housing markets are. Like, it seems like a lot of the people who are doing this, first of all, seem to think two things. One, that Hassan Piker showed up with a suitcase filled with unmarked dollar bills totaling $2.7 million and just gave that all, like, just had that much money to spend. They don't know that what mortgages are or anything like that. And then there's the other one that is having an idea that, like, first of all, not knowing what urban real estate costs are like. It's just... Then there was that one person who said that the average person only makes $30,000 in their entire life, which was just, like, the weirdest thing.
Wait, what?
There's a guy on Twitter who said that the average worker makes $30,000 in their entire life.
Is that like a net? Is that like a net profit or something?
Oh, it was the same person that thought that.
Globally?
It was the same person who thought that if you bought a house for over 500K, you're not a socialist anymore.
Oh, of course.
Which, by the way, just want to put it out there for anybody who's never bought a house before, which this person is obviously in there. 400K is not enough to buy you a house in most cities in the United States anymore.
No, I feel like you can live in like a cornfield maybe, and that's even then.
Like, I bought a house, and it is not 500K, but it's not far from that. And so it's just like it's just wild.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors.
But I also think it's like, because there is sort of like a lot of animosity towards the rich trademark, which there should be, like 100% there should definitely be, but I feel like has become a bit of like an overgeneralization that anyone who sort of like appears to be rich or whatever, is now also suddenly sort of like responsible for everything that is wrong by the rich TM. I saw a couple of people saying that like the only reason why Hassan could get so much money is because he streams on Twitch, which means he makes money for Amazon, which means that he is basically exactly the same as Jeff Bezos, which I just feel like is a little weird. Like that's a weird generalization to make.
It's like, my sister works in an Amazon warehouse. Does that make her Jeff Bezos?
If she gets promoted or gets a pay rise even once, then she becomes Jeff Bezos.
I see. Yeah, everyone's pointing out, and this is the most, like, there was a discourse maybe like 2 weeks ago about the ContraPoints Envy video, and then this is like the perfect like encapsulation of exactly the point she was trying to make.
Yeah. Because I definitely feel like if Hassan, I don't know, like bought several houses and basically became like a landlord, like that's one thing to be critical of, which we could be, but I feel like
buying a house for yourself and it being the like center of like it's not only buying a house, buying an office because he's a streamer, so he works out of his house, and it's also a house for his parents. Like his parents, he bought the house with his parents as well.
Yeah.
And so he's like, oh, he bought a 5-bedroom house, and it's like, okay, one's an office, one's for him, one's for his parents, and then I don't know, maybe his parents need something. I don't know, but either way, like, it led to this week of people scrutinizing this guy's like buying of a home, and now he's been like thoroughly doxxed. He's like getting like all sorts of attention put on this place, and now he's like it's just, I don't know, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's just so unfair. Because like I really feel like when people talk about like the problems of like even landlords, right, or even like the housing market, because I feel like some people were trying to come in with like somewhat reasonable request or like reasonable criticism being like, if you live in a city that has a lot of homelessness and you buy a very expensive house, you're also like helping drive up housing prices and things of that nature. Um, but like I think really like people forget like the idea of scale here, right? Because like one guy buying a house, even the most expensive house in the world, for example, like even if I actually make enough money one day to buy an actual ass castle in the Swedish countryside, like that does not really compare to like a housing ownership company that buys up like 50 apartment buildings every week, and like does things with that, and that might also be owned by like a single person. Um, but because they're not as much in the public eye, and because they don't like appear in the same rich focus, they don't really get as much of a blowback, even though they are the one of the main contributors to the actual like structural issues that we have.
Yeah. And like on that note, like the problem is not streamer man buy house, it's that we've commodified housing. And
Yeah,
like the fact that housing has become a financial asset more than it has become like a thing that people live in. Kind of the subject of my cryptocurrency video. The commodity fetishism of housing has kind of ruined everything. And someone just pointed out, why is he living with his parents when he's 30 years old? And it's like, first of all, what's it called? He's Turkish, and that's not abnormal in a lot of cultures, including Turkish culture.
Mm.
And
it's actually like the norm, isn't it?
it's
Like
the norm.
globally,
It's the
just
norm in
like
like most of the world, except like Northern Europe and the Americas.
yeah, where all the
Like,
media comes from, so that's what people think.
yeah,
Yeah.
like even in Europe, like Spaniards and Italians and like Greeks and stuff, it's not that uncommon for
Oh yeah.
multi-generational families to live like that.
Yeah, like the idea is that you have the family all together.
Yeah. Yeah, this actually came up in my relationship with Kelly, because Kelly's like my wife, Kelly. For everybody who doesn't know in the chat, she is my wife. She is American, and from a sort of like English American like background, while I come from a French Canadian background, and we've actually had to have like slight friction over the fact that like those two different cultures have keep their family at different distances from each other, and that
Mm.
so like it's not even like a just an America's thing. Like even in French culture, it's like uncommon, or it's not uncommon. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the rule is in Sweden. It sounds like everybody just needs to be as far away from everybody else as possible, because
Yeah,
everybody
pretty
hates each
much.
other.
Yeah, most people definitely like move out at 18, and also has this sort of like weird social stigma about like moving back with their parents, or like living with their parents as an adult. I don't know why we have that as such a strong social stigma, because it because when you think about it, what does it mean? You have a good relationship with your parents, and you can afford to like live together in a respectful way. This is somehow a bad thing.
Yeah,
It also means socialism not possible.
yeah. So yeah, I think we've nailed all the major points. It does suck. Like the commodification of housing really sucks, and I really wish we could move away from a world where we use houses as a way to grow financing, because it has completely it's the main reason for homelessness is the commodification of housing.
Yeah. Isn't there like what is it like 8 times the amount of empty homes than there are homeless people now?
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a huge discrepancy between the amount of empty
Yeah.
homes and the amount of people, and like
I read a statistic somewhere that like you could take the entire American homeless population, like all of it, and just put it in empty housing in California,
yeah,
and that would fix it. Um, but obviously, like things are more complicated than that. So that's not like a viable solution directly, obviously. But also, maybe it should be part of the solution.
Yeah. Someone's like, you're French Canadian, like Quebec or New Brunswick? I have my French family were Quebecois and Franco-Ontarian, but they moved to BC, and so they're like British Columbian Franco-Ontarians and Quebecois. So that's it. Okay. Now the other thing, the other discourse that we're talking about is that just today, a few things happened. One, Florida, the Florida of America, has passed a all-time infection rate record. So that's fun.
Yeah, isn't it worse now than it was like during the last like big spike?
Yeah, and now
Yeah.
America is also back to losing over 1,000 people a day to the coronavirus. So that's wild. We had in Ontario, our health, one of our like high science, like our people who was in charge of like health data science stuff, resigned today because of political interfering in the scientific process. Basically, trying to cook the numbers so that they could justify reopening and stuff like that. So that's
Oh,
fun.
that's fucked up, actually. Holy shit.
What's the Florida of Canada? Probably. Ooh, that's a good question.
What's the one that begins with an A? We've talked about it a
Alberta?
few times. Alberta.
Well,
That's
Alberta's already the
impression
Texas of
that I
Canada.
got. Oh yeah, yeah, you're right.
I could almost say that Sarnia is the Florida of Canada. We'll go with that. It's just one city, but let's go with it. Yeah, and we're in a weird place right now because what's happening is if you look at the graph in Ontario, we're having it's just showing that we have to like really reassess the way that we think about things, because right now we're in this case where cases are going up, but deaths are going down.
Yeah.
And it's like, because like, if I'm going to put my take on it, and I don't know how you guys are going to feel about this, but the idea that we were ever going to defeat the coronavirus is long gone. Like, there's no way we're going to make it go extinct at this point. We've let it mutate too much. There's too many people wanted their freedom to be assholes, and like the chance that we could have gotten if we had done a proper lockdown and a proper vaccination campaign is basically over. And now we're kind of in this situation where what we have to do is use a broad vaccine rollout to prime our immune system so that when we get this disease, it's like getting the flu, where we're only down for we're down for like a week or two with the sniffles and in bed and not like dying. Because the main issue is that our immune system is just not prepared for COVID. And so at this point, we're kind of needing to think about how we're going to land this thing where we're just like making sure that everybody who gets it doesn't get deathly ill. That's really the only goal we can have anymore.
But like, even if I think I saw Hank Green say something about this, that like, even if like a wizard came along and like eliminated COVID from like every single person on Earth at this point, it would still come back, because COVID is transmittable between humans and animals as well, like pretty easily, which means that like, as opposed to smallpox, which could only spread between humans, and therefore it's very easy to eliminate as long as you just like don't make it so humans are incubators for it. As long as there's going to be like a ferret in Denmark, or unfortunately to say, like, I don't know, a bat somewhere like in Germany or whatever, that has COVID, it's gonna keep like cropping up basically for a long time.
Yeah. This reminds me, I went to the zoo over the weekend.
Me too.
Whoa. Okay. What a quinky dink. But like they had I don't know if this was true for you, but there was signs everywhere that was like, wear a mask because we can't, and it was to protect the animals from getting COVID.
Oh.
And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
and like any of the only, It was a terrible. The only thing that was terrible about it was that with the humidex was 40 degrees that day, and so and farm zoos are big and wide and take up a lot of space, but also every indoor building that had like air conditioning, where like things like that were indoors were all closed. So the only ones that were open were the ones that had atmospheric stuff done to simulate like a jungle. So the only reprieve you could get from the sun was the jungle.
That's all you get.
Yeah. I did get, and also it was so hot that every animal was just like vibing in the shade.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
The only animals that actually were into doing stuff were the giraffes.
That's wholesome.
But I did get to. But the thing is that the tiger. I have this picture of the tiger where it's just like napping in the shade, and it looks just like a kitty.
Yeah.
I love big cats acting like little cats.
Whenever I go to the zoo in my hometown, they have a bunch of lions, and literally every time I'm there, I'm like, small kitty,
Yeah.
kitty play, and then they like, I don't know, like run away with like a big, like leg of a zebra or whatever, and then I'm like, no, oh God.
Yeah. Didn't most of these animals evolve in the tropics? Yes, but the way that a lot of animals adapted to living in hot climates is by not doing a whole lot during the hottest part of the day.
Yeah. Like just the vibe.
Yeah, like even like the first thing we saw, I think when we got there, were the lemurs, and all the lemurs were just like in the shade trying to hide from the heat. Except, yeah, Taylor Swifts. The Taylor Swifts were just eating grass, and they looked pretty happy.
The Taylor Swifts?
The giraffes.
Oh.
Taylor Swift is a giraffe in disguise. That's my conspiracy theory.
I believe it.
But yeah, other than that, zoo was fun. And I hate 40-degree heat. I almost died, but it's fine.
Oh my God, then.
I didn't like actually die, but I had to drink like I think I counted. I drank almost 6 liters of water, and I was still like kind of dehydrated at the end of the day. So, does the Toronto Zoo have red pandas? Yes, and we saw them, and it was one of those things where it's like you look in the pen and there was nothing there, but then there's like a sign in the pen that says "Look up" because they were like up in these super tall trees, and are like, oh, there they are. It was perfect. It was a beautiful moment. What was
weird
the
how similar our zoos are like though, because the zoo that I was like also had red pandas.
Yeah. And then we had a big fight over whether red or black and white pandas are cuter, and I was on team red panda, but all right.
Yeah, because they're small.
Yeah, because they're small. They're small boys.
They're very cute.
Yeah, everybody agrees, right?
A panda bear can fuck you up. A small panda bear, it's gonna be cute.
Did you have any fun highlights at your zoo experience?
Me?
Yeah.
Not really. I saw a bunch of because they also have like chimps and orangutans. So I the only thing because all of the indoor areas were like closed and the summer is like it's almost over, so it's not like almost no people, like no events or anything. So we just really walked around to look at various animals. But we did see a bunch of chimps, and I had a lot of fun. You're like gazing in the eyes of a chimpanzee, and I really felt more than I have ever felt before that I should return to monkey.
It's weird when you look at like apes like that, and you can like see that they're like intelligent in the eyes, and you can like feel like, oh my god, we are so similar.
We're just scary similar too.
Yeah,
I saw one chimp that like it took a bag because they just had a bag as a toy. It climbed up to a rope and then like pulled the bag over the rope held it together and sat in it like a chair. And that's the most fucked up thing I've ever seen in my life. Because he just made like a hanging hammock that he just held together, and he just sat there, and like super high up in the sky. And because I don't think that I could have come up with that. I'm a human being. We're pretty prideful of our intelligence, right? I don't think that if I had a bag and a piece of rope high up, I don't think that I would have made it. Oh, I can make a chair out of this. I don't think I could have done that.
Yep. I had a
I love
similar
monkeys.
I had a similar connection, but it was with a gorilla family. It was the gorillas.
The gorillas are. I don't think have I ever seen a gorilla? I don't think I have. No. There's a zoo in the Netherlands where they let monkeys just walk around wild, except for gorillas because they can fuck you up. Um, I've been wanting to go back there, but it's been like so long.
There was that rhinos and hippos were just all like 100% in the water. They just like were like, yeah, we're not leaving this today. Thank you very much.
No,
Uh,
it's gonna vibe in this little pond. Thank you.
probably the most like sad was going through the tundra part. The Arctic animals, like the reindeer, were not having the best of times.
Mm.
The polar bear was like just in the water the whole time because I think they like chill the water, so it just like hangs out in the water all day.
Like they have a polar bear?
Yeah,
Well, that ain't right.
yeah. The polar bear was not having a great time. I don't think.
Yeah, that kind of
The,
sucks.
the Arctic wolves seem fine though, and those are, oh man, so cute, so big.
Yeah,
You don't
those are
appreciate how
huge.
big wolves are until like you see them up close. You're like, oh fuck.
Yeah,
Man.
yeah. You keep thinking that they're like dogs, but they're no.
No, it is
They're
huge.
they're huge, gigantic.
Aren't these animals native to Canada anyway? Yes. What's it called? The Toronto Zoo has an entire Canada section. That's not the part we were in. That was the Arctic section. But there's a Canada section where they actually have like raccoons in pens, and it's like, come on! I've literally seen these in my backyard. And like moose and stuff like that. But the thing is, the Canada section is like separated from the rest of the zoo. Like you can do a easy circuit and get everything else, but the zoo or the Canada part is like far off, and so whenever you go there, there is no one there. But that's where they keep the raccoons and the moose and like that kind of stuff. Also the camels. Camels were really legit, and they were vibing. They didn't mind that at all.
They were fine in the heat.
They're like, I am camel.
I love animals who just straight up don't give a shit.
Camels, I don't think a camel has ever once in the history of camel kind ever given a single shit.
I don't think they're like biologically capable of doing that.
Yeah, they are like unrepentant assholes by all accounts of their behavior as animals. Like,
And I can't really picture like any predator going after them in any way that they would be scared of.
no.
Like, because they're desert animals, right? More than anything else.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like, what predators are in the desert big enough to take down a camel?
No idea. But like, I will say, like, even the best trained camels spit on people. They bite, and they're just like generally unpleasant animals.
They're just assholes.
Yeah. They give zero fucks. Okay,
You,
I
you
think
gotta respect that. You gotta respect that.
yeah. So that's all. That's all my talk on zoo talk. I think that's plenty.
We both had a nice last week.
Yeah, what's it called? Touched so much grass and was barely online. It was wonderful.
I love touching grass.
And I finished a video, which is a thing I haven't done in a few weeks.
Oh shit! I gotta do that too.
Yeah. Okay, so we do have questions. We have a fair number of questions
Yes.
because we
Are they zoo related?
No zoo
It's
questions.
not, yeah, I'm not going to be capable of
What's going to
answering one of these
happen
things.
is we're going to get questions about zoos next week from people watching this stream and thinking about zoos.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
It's either the liberal podcast response zone, the lawyer podcast response zone, and now Star Trek talk, Paradox game talk, and now zoo talk,
And male gaze
uh,
talk.
and male gaze talk. If you came here for history from two historians, you're sorely mistaken.
Yes. Okay. The question we got here asks, it's from Tony. Hello, Tony.
Oh,
Do you
well,
see an impending civil war because of the far right militias in America? If so, why?
I don't see a civil war in in any sense that we would recognize it today, even regarding like more modern civil wars, where it's just like sporadic acts of terrorism and like falling apart of government services and institutions and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't even see that happening. But what I do see is just like the slow, inevitable sort of decline and trust in like public institutions. And I can see maybe not malicious, but like militia-like organizations sort of picking up the slack from that. I don't think it's sort of inevitable that something would go to violence or or war or terrorism or anything like that. I don't think that's inevitable, even though it probably might happen occasionally. But I do think that the consequences of what we would call like a modern day civil war would probably still happen, just like slowly due to yeah, just mistrust and economic and ecological change over time.
Yeah. Not to derail, but someone just said, "Welcome to the Monday Discourse, where two historians talk about zoos." Excellent. Um,
Yes.
yeah, like I think you're pretty on the money. Like I think that the future of, especially of the United States specifically, is probably going to look more like the kind of works in Octavia Butler's writing, where the state just sort of doesn't have the resources to really hold the country together,
Yeah.
and as they like just lose their ability, like, because the thing is, like, to have a civil war, you would have to have relatively contiguous geographic distribution of the different sides of the conflict, which at this point in the United States is not really the case. The problem with like the thing about America that's really weird and probably not a thing we've seen in a long time is that the big division between the division kind of bifurcating America is not geographic. It's like, like like it's individuals who live beside each other who hate each other. Like there's this sort of like fake idea that America is like, it's got red states and blue states, but like the majority of America is just kind of a mix.
Yeah.
And so, in many ways, I don't think there's going to be much of a like a civil war with like organized factions, as much as it's just going to be what's the thing on the new on the Robert Evans podcast? Just the crumbles of just
Yes.
the institutions sort of falling apart and different places and different people sort of fighting turf wars to take over different little niches of stuff going on. That's about that.
Yeah.
Someone just
That's
asked.
that's a pretty good answer.
Yeah, someone just asked if I've talked about Jack Layton yet. I got he died 10 years ago yesterday. Who was Jack Layton was the mixed figure, very nice guy. Probably rode the NDP, our Social Democratic Party, to its highest highs in 2011. Uh, he what's it called? He rode the election. He rode the party all the way to official opposition before dying like 6 months later. Not even 6 months
Mm.
later. But in some ways, like he's very well liked, very well remembered, to the point where they're actually renaming, I think, like a neighborhood or a riding after him. Only downside is he his like his effect on the NDP was all basically moving to the right and removing like the socialist stuff from like the party charter and all that kind of stuff, which like I have mixed
Yeah.
feelings about.
Yeah. Don't love that.
But and also Jack Layton's like sort of shadow looms over the party in such a big way where he was such like a positive guy who was like such like a big believer in like positive campaigning and stuff like that, and not about getting angry, which was not the greatest for our country because now we're in this situation where like the class war has begun, but the NDP refuses to. Like I've worked in the NDP and they have an issue with like they don't do negative campaigning. Everything is like smiles and like waves. It's like a kindergarten teacher running for office. When right now we need like someone who's mad. But
Yeah.
Jack Layton,
There's a place for both of that.
but Jack Layton was like a very like legitimately good dude, and like he was like the only like he brought left wing politics into Canadian politics. Like he made the NDP an actual like party that people gave a shit about and pushed a lot of ideas that the Liberals then passed and took credit for, which is sort of our thing. Sort of the way our politics works. So he was an interesting person. And yeah, I remembered because I think I went to his funeral, which was in Toronto, and had like a big gathering outside. But yeah, he died in 2011. And I'm like, oh shit, it's been 10 years. That was my first thought. That's first thing came to mind. I was like, oh shit, that was 10 years ago? God, I'm old. Okay, the next question we got here is, though this may be off topic, but I am curious about your thoughts on the concept I'm trying to utilize in my novel. Okay. During U.S. invasion of Cambodia, there was a secret armada sent to Thailand. ACIA arrested SOG division of the 1st Air Cavalry being covertly going into Thailand under the cover of the invasion of Cambodia. Their mission is to investigate the loss of contact within a secret research under... Okay, I don't even understand. This is just... I can't. I'm sorry. Move on. All right. Would you rather have elections held on a...
Sounds like a good Tom Clancy novel.
Yeah, just I don't know
nothing
what...
else.
I don't know what
And
to say
that
to that.
sells.
Okay, the next question we got here is from our non-Dutch name. Would you rather have elections held on a scheduled basis as in the U.S., or when the government wants to have another one as in Canada or the U.K.?
Oh, scheduled. 100%. Every time. Like 100%. Like scheduled intervals.
You're not a vote on confidence kind of person?
Absolutely not. I think you should only vote outside of like those opportunities, like when you literally can't form a government, or like there's some sort of constitutional crisis or whatever. Then I think like having a snap election or whatever is fine, because otherwise we're gonna end up with, I don't know, I think we've seen this in a couple of countries, but I'm mostly thinking about the UK, where like at moments of like big turning points, and the government has like the parties in the government have like a big upswing in the polls, they'll just call a snap election for some reason. And because they know that they can sort of like,
I can't
they
think of a
can
single
time
time
it
that's
when
happened. I can't think of a single time that happened in my country last week.
And I just think that that's sort of, it sort of undermines the system of democracy a little bit. If we're just gonna have elections during the specific few months when everyone loves one specific party, that's not really, in my mind, democracy. What we should do, here's how we should do elections. Just a non-stop, constant election that kicks in once every 4 years. But that means that, like, you vote on you vote in like January of 2022, and then like your neighbor votes like a year later, that's when the votes like come in to sort of like disperse time over polls. And you can change your vote later, I guess. But in that way, it's sort of like public opinion is gonna like mellow out a little bit more, so that governments can't just like try to time like news events and try to time snap elections or publicity stunts right when elections are coming. It has to sort of be spread out all throughout the mandate period, which I think is what governing is supposed to be, but that's not how politics work anymore.
Yeah, I will add to that. There is a problem with like the problem with scheduled elections is kind of what you see in the United States, which is that
Mm.
um, if you know for a fact when the next election is, then like the writ doesn't ever get dropped. So in America, you are just campaigning and fundraising 24/7. Like the time from the second you're elected,
Yeah.
you're looking to the next election immediately. And in America, that leads to a situation where, like, they are always thinking about the next election. They are never thinking about, doing government. But I do
Yeah,
agree that
but
there's like a lot of issues that come up in these like, especially in periods where they can't put a government together and they just keep getting like if you think about it, those kinds of periods lead to things like, isn't that how Hitler came to power? Is because Germany was in a period where they just couldn't get a government together, so they were having like multiple elections back to back. Like that
yeah.
kind of frustration that comes with like government instability can be a problem. And like in Canada, if we have a minority government, we tend to go to the polls like every 18 months until we get a majority government back.
Yeah, but I feel like no matter what system you have, you're gonna have some sort of political instability. And I feel like with the regular election, you can at least like mitigate a lot of it. 'Cause, like Sweden also has like scheduled elections, and a lot of countries do. But in the US, at least, it feels like because they have like completely unregulated elections, basically, like with lobbying and like fundraising and um, just the amount of money that's involved in elections and just how elections are working in the US, like based on individuals more than anything else. Um, I feel like if you just like regulated it a bit better, you a lot of these problems wouldn't exist a little bit. Like if you just like limited the amount of lobbying that could be made, how much money you're allowed to spend on what's it called? Like campaigning, like limiting the influence of like super PACs or whatever the hell that's called.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, because like America just basically has no laws about like in Sweden. So if you have regular elections, does that mean that is there a point like how does it work in the sense that like is there a point where like the writs dropped where like before this point you can't put up signs, you can't do ads, and then after that you
Yeah.
can right up until election day?
Yeah. There's like a date when there's like a legal date. I think it's just something like maybe 90 days or something before the polls open. I'm not super sure about that, but I think it's 90 days. Um, and before that, it's like straight up illegal to put up election signs and put up your like go around campaigning or knocking on doors. Like you're not allowed to do it because then it becomes sort of like intrusive in people's lives. People can't think about elections for like an extended period of time. Um, but if you have this time limit, then like there's gonna be a date that sort of everyone knows that like okay, campaigning starts now.
Yep.
And everyone gets the same head start. Everyone gets this like a proportional amount of money that they can use to campaign for. There's not a lot of fundraising going on in like Swedish elections either, um, and it just like levels the playing field a little bit, which I think is a bit better.
Makes sense. Is there any NDP politicians that are to the radical extreme far left of Nikki Ashton? Not really. She's the only MP that's in that kind of. Nikki Ashton's our version of like Jeremy Corbyn, who's like, she hasn't gotten very far. Or she ran for leader in the last leadership race and lost. But sorry to derail here. But
No, what do you mean? You're not derailing at all.
the NDP are, for there are a lot of like radical leftists in the NDP that I only know about because of my experience working for them, but they tend not to rise to the top of the riding association, and they definitely don't become candidates. Like I have had many times where like I was like out canvassing, and like I was with like some guy who's like a Marxist Leninist, another person who's like a democratic socialist, and then there's like another social democrat, and then there'd be like me, an anarchist. It's just like we're all like disappointed in the NDP for not being extreme enough, but it's the only option you got. So there are a lot of like radical, and there's apparently, like this is all scuttlebutt, but there is apparently a good amount of MPs who are much more moderate in public than their actual politics. So yeah, the NDP is kind of like this is the big problem. It's a party that is literally afraid of its own best ideas, and it always has this. It goes to the same thing where there's this point where people realize they can vote for them and win, and they start surging up and surging up and surging up, and then they think, oh shit, we could actually win this election, and then they're like, let's just veer to the right so that we can get more centrists, and then they say they're going to balance the budget or something, and then that leads to them like crashing right at the end. They are like an expert political party at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
I feel like a lot of liberal parties, like liberal-ish parties, do have a tendency of doing that, even if they have like moderately good ideas.
Yeah. And so, and very often, and every time they have a good idea, it's in Parliament, and then the Liberals will be the ones in charge. They'll pass the law, then they'll claim that it was their idea, and then the NDP, when they try to run, they like, we're going to do this and we're going to do this. Like right now, the big one that they're trying to push is, and this is good, that for COVID relief, the NDP is going to give everybody who rents a $5,000 check as a rent subsidy. And that from now on, everyone would get $5,000 a year as a rent subsidy.
That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah. For my last place, that would have been like 2.5 months rent, which is not great, but it's, it would be good. It's decent. It would help.
Yeah. Help them.
But like, now what's going to happen is that the NDP will be afraid of that idea. They'll stop campaigning on it at the end. They'll lose the election. Then the Liberals will pass $2,500 a month or a year in rent subsidy. And then everyone will be like, man, the Liberals do so many great things. That will be our life. That's Canadian politics in a nutshell. Okay. Let's see what we got next. All right. Back when I was still on Facebook, I got an ad for one of those Skillshare type courses, not actually Skillshare though, that was like how to draw good female characters, but it was hosted by a male comic book artist. Does this perfectly sum up the issue with male artists writing and drawing female characters when we're using the same tropes over and over?
I guess that would depend a bit on the course, right?
Yeah.
I definitely think that like male artists can do like very, very good sort of like female art and interpretations of like the womanly form, whatever. So I think it's possible, but I don't know if that's the case here. If they are just using like tropes and like this tiny waist and this big tits, then.
And that weird comic book pose where they can like they twist their spine like 180 degrees so you can see both their butt and their breasts at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it was that weird Italian artist who made that really controversial Spider Woman cover.
Yes, the classic. I love that one. Where she's like literally like she's like folded up in a weird way, so her like ass can be both towards the reader, but also her breast and also her face is just like turned up. It's really unnerving to see, actually. If you look, like, you can probably just like see if you just Google, I guess, like Spider-Woman cover art, you're probably gonna find that one, and it's gonna look really weird.
I will say though that attacking misogyny on an Italian artist is actually Fritophobia. It is their culture. Heritage, not hate, or whatever, for Italianness.
Or Italianness.
I don't know if we learned from the Andrew Cuomo thing, but like, where he tried to defend himself from doing tons of sexual harassment by releasing a PDF of him doing sexual harassment to a bunch of people, and just saying, no, Italians just act like grabby bosses from like 90s anti-sexual harassment videos.
The fact, because like I saw that and I straight up thought it was like an Onion article first, but he like straight up said something like, I'm not perverted, I'm just Italian. Like, what?
Now, some ways you could say that that's him trying to like, you know, take a dive for you know, trying to throw his culture under the bus in terms for covering up for his sexual misconduct. Or we can talk about how sexual harassment is a pivotal part of the Italian culture, as much as, I mean, what are you supposed to do when you, okay, think about it this way. You're Italian, you're riding your Vespa to work, and you see a woman on the street walking normally. Are you supposed to not sexually harass them?
Yeah, you're not Italian at that point.
Yeah, they literally, I think they actually revoke your citizenship if you don't do it.
They do, yeah. They open up your wallet, take your passport, and some spaghetti.
Yeah, you can't make spaghetti anymore. They take your pasta machine.
God, every time we do this stream, we gotta bully the Italians.
I don't know why. This is just a thing we decided.
But to be fair, it's not just like we're not saying that sexual harassment is part of just Italian culture. It's also part of French.
Well, yes.
So I'm just saying here that like it's
different. It's different
in Europe.
though. Like Italian misogyny is just public street harassment, is just part of their culture. French sexual harassment is the fact that marriage is more of a suggestion than a covenant, and that every prominent French man is entitled to it. Basically, France is a polygamous culture where rich men can have at least 2 families.
I'm just thinking, but like from the perspective, like I'm putting myself in the position of walking in Italy versus walking in France, and I'm thinking like if I'm in France, I feel like there's a part of me that would just be like, that sucks if someone like is weird towards me on the street. Sucks, but also like kind of expect it. Like you kind of expect it, and like I feel like, hopefully it stops there, and then it's sort of harmless. Still sucks, but I feel like in French culture, French street harassment, I feel there is danger there.
They have weird things, like they'll be like, "Hello, beautiful. Hello, you're so beautiful. You could fit in my pocket." It's like, wait, what? Why is that the thing French people say?
What? But not like, and now I'm gonna be worried. Like, are you gonna follow me home forever?
Yeah,
like
this,
it's less.
This isn't Italy. What do you think you are, a Spaniard? Okay, so someone did point out 2 important things. One, France is the Italy of Europe. Fair. And that,
but fair, yeah.
Yeah, and also, if you sexually harass somebody and you're not Italian, that's actually cultural appropriation.
Wait, sorry, what did you say?
If you sexually harass somebody and you're not Italian, that's actually cultural appropriation.
God.
I think Italy is the Italy of Europe. No, Italy is the Florida of Europe.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are, by focusing on Italy as the singular source of street harassment, though, we are giving Spain a little bit of a pass.
Yeah. But they have siestas, so...
What is it about having what is it about the Western Mediterranean that just makes you, I don't know.
I feel like if you get to live in like literal Mediterranean climate, like around olive trees, um, you become too pampered. And when you are too pampered, when you're like too spoiled by where you live, by living in beautiful climate and wonderful architecture and things of that nature, wonderful history, when you're spoiled from that, you try to ruin it somehow. You start to self-sabotage. That's why I think that happens. To be fair, that's not to say that like the northern climates are any better. Here it's cold and miserable and dark all the time, and people take out that frustration on other people. So there's just as bad of a problem here, but from other reasons.
Mm-hmm.
You see where I'm coming from?
Yes. Romanization. Yeah, the Romans were the ones who spread sexual harassment to Europe through the sword.
They invented it and they spread it around.
Centurions rode their Vespas into Central Europe to defeat the Gauls. Now I want like a sort of like serious historical drama about like the Roman Empire or something, but everybody who is Roman, like given that, remember that like recreation of a Roman emperor, like
yes,
everyone is just like an Italian stereotype.
Hey, Antonius. Thank you for the mozzarella. It's the best side of this way, of this side of the Danube.
Exactly.
Mamma mia.
Mamma mia. That was actually like, what's it called? That was Shakespeare. Shakespeare went too liberal with Et tu, Brute, and it was just, Mamma mia, I have been stabbed.
I gotta say though, I love. To be fair, we are joking around. I love Italy. It's a wonderful country.
Yes.
Good food.
Good food, and it's like, yes, it's 26 degrees every day, and there's the nice breeze coming off the ocean.
Yeah, nice breeze, good, like great food, perfect temperature, all fucking time, forever. And fucking every little small town looks like it comes from a romantic comedy movie, completely fake.
Yep. Italy might be a hoax. I'm saying I've never been to Italy, so it could be a hoax.
Yeah, it could be. I think Italy is maybe a psyop from Italian Americans.
It's true. Italian Americans invented Italy to excuse their sexual harassment. They invented it. So Andrew Cuomo invented a culture called Italian so that he could say it's part of my culture to sexually harass people. So it's how he like.
Yeah. But it's not actually real.
Yeah. It's a fake culture made up so that a bunch of guys who do sexual harassment can have a culture to explain their harassment.
To be fair, like, none of this is incompatible with what we know about Roman history.
Yep. We solved it. Italy is a scam by Big Europe to sell more pasta. Yep.
Oh my god.
All right. So that was fun. Okay.
Like, Night Shyamalan could definitely make a movie about this, like the beach that makes you Italian.
The beach that makes okay. Yeah, just like that movie that came out recently, where
it's old,
but it's Italy or Italian, and it's just like you get more Italian the longer you're at the beach.
Oh no.
It's a horror movie. Okay. Why was Prohibition both popular enough to get the lefty support to become a U.S. amendment, while at the same time being so unpopular that there were many people, so many defying it? So, I don't know if you know. You might know about this. That for some reason, the United States and Canada, to a lesser extent, decided to make alcohol illegal for a decade.
Yeah.
It didn't work out well. So okay. How to get lefty support? It was prohibitionists were popular. You have to think about the role that alcohol played in American society at that point. Specifically, that heavy alcohol consumption was associated with two things. One, abuse, and like there's this idea that alcohol was this thing that entitled bros, i.e., men, were getting shit faced at bars using all of their pay and then going home and drunkenly like abusing their spouses and putting their children in poverty. The second was it was also a thing that the goddamn Europeans were doing when they were moving here. All those undesirable immigrants from Germany and like Italy and such were all like problem drinkers in their minds because they drank alcohol at all. So there was
something that I saw also fairly recently. Is like alcohol consumption back in those days was very different from what it is today. Like the reason why alcohol is very regulated today is a result of prohibition a little bit, right?
Yeah, the amount of liquor.
Yeah, because I saw someone compare it to like the opioid epidemic, basically. But like opiates are a thing that we should have in medicine and should be available in society, right? Like alcohol should. But the opioid epidemic is fucking awful and it's killing a lot of people, and that's sort of how a lot of people viewed alcohol.
Alcohol consumption was way higher in pre-prohibition times than post-prohibition times. This is true. And also because of that, like it was associated with men spending a bunch of money and being abusive. It was one of the kind of big things in the nascent feminist movement, i.e. in the first wave feminist movement, is one of the issues they cared a lot about. It was, getting the vote and banning alcohol were like the two big progressive ideals. And so when the left joined in on sort of these progressive movements, they were, the people who were fighting for like workers' rights and stuff like that, and women's votes and all that, like all of that kind of stuff. In that mix was also things that we would be less amenable to today, like prohibition and eugenics. So, because people were a lot more comfortable with those things back then, and so it kind of got swept up into it. And it became unpopular because alcohol is like an extremely integral part of many cultures, but especially in this case, especially a lot of European cultures. And there was and it was also a law that was very poorly enforced for a good chunk of it. And when it was enforced, it was really only enforced against immigrants and the poor. Rich people could still drink, basically. And like all things, like as we learn, when you try to make anything illegal like that, you just end up handing it to criminal enterprises. And when you have something that was so huge and like a gigantic part of culture just get banned overnight, the mob just jumps on it.
Yeah, and like even though like alcohol consumption like drastically did drop during Prohibition, right? Like it wasn't as much of a proportional change to like hospitalizations. There was still a dramatic decrease, but there was still like it should have decreased more based on like how much alcohol was being consumed. But the reason why it didn't is because the second it became illegal, people started making their own booze at home, and people started like smuggling booze and making like really, just like basically making having a drug lab at home, but for alcohol. And what happens with that when you ban something completely out of regulation is it becomes so much more unsafe. So you get people who drink just tainted alcohol and drink alcohol that's used for like cleaning engines that also makes them blind. So even though it did decrease sort of the negative health aspects of alcohol, because it made it so unsafe, the people who were still drinking alcohol were getting more hurt. So,
yep. Also, the police were actually poisoning booze back then too.
Yeah.
There's so many fun stories from Prohibition that I always want to point out. Like one of my favorites is that they made a lot of special dispensations for alcohol, specifically for different religious purposes. And one of the ones that you could do was you could buy wine if you were a rabbi, because there's wine as part of a Jewish Jewish congregational stuff. And so what happened was is like you see like a bunch of like especially Irish and Italian like guys like converting to Judaism and becoming declaring because there was no like league like the Judaism doesn't have like a central authority, so there's no like it's not like the Catholic Church where you can declare like how they you are officially a priest type thing. So there's just like a bunch of like random dudes who were like declaring themselves to be rabbis so that they could get wine. And so you ended up with like Rabbi Patty O'Malley and stuff like that.
Yeah. And as you also mentioned before, like since like the legal alcohol industry was pushed out, it just went all into organized crime.
Yep.
And that's how we ended up with Al Capone and a bunch of like massacres in Chicago.
Yep. Canada had prohibition in some of its provinces. Some of them didn't. Like Quebec never had prohibition because if you try taking alcohol away from French people, it just never ends well. But like, I can say that I'm one of them. Anyways, here, think about. Okay, this is how Canada did it. So every province banned it for different lengths of time. I think the longest lasted for maybe 5 or 6 years, but. And this is very fun. Canada made medicinal whiskey legal. So you can still buy and make whiskey for medicinal purposes. And
Wonderful.
that medicinal purpose was very often sending tons and tons and tons and tons of bottles of Canadian Club to the United States. To the point where Canadian whiskey is now actually a fixture of American drinking culture. Like you can get Canadian whiskey in most bars because it was like the only whiskey Americans were getting for like a decade.
Yeah.
So there you go, everybody. Is French culture a psyop to cover up liking alcohol? Yes.
It's definitely a psyop by Big Wine.
Oh yeah.
I don't think anyone actually has wine as their favorite alcoholic drink. I like wine, but there are so many other types of alcohol that I can go through before I get to wine. The only reason why it exists is because people talk about France.
Is Sweden close enough to like Eastern Europe to have like that kind of like vodka culture?
Oh yeah. Have you heard of Absolut vodka?
Oh yeah, it's the one that's made by your military or whatever.
Yeah, like I think it's like partially owned by the government.
Yeah, in a very
so
Swedish.
We just like, I like how the Swedish response to prohibition, or the temperance movement overall, was just like, okay, they're banning it in some places, but what if we just like, we're gonna keep selling it, but only the government can sell it, and we're gonna make our own, so it's like clean and good. If only we had the same thinking about like narcotics politics,
drugs. So is like so you have the same thing of like people will just like hang around like sipping on vodka for like a whole evening type thing. Like you just see like it's regular to have like just old people hanging out sipping on vodka for like a whole evening.
Oh, I think we are at the prime intersection between sort of cold, like Russian-ish alcohol culture, but also a bit warmer, like German alcohol culture. So you'll see people drinking this copious amounts of beer, and then like in the evening, if the beer hasn't hit enough, then the vodka comes in. But we also drink, what's it called? Like schnapps.
Oh yeah, schnapps.
Which isn't really vodka in that sense. Well, sometimes it is.
It's like super sweet though.
It depends on the schnapps because I think internationally there's like schnapps and there's like the schnapps and the taste. You have like 2 or 3 flavors, but here it's just like if you go to the liquor store, there's like shelves and shelves of the stuff, and they all have like very distinct flavors. And no one likes them. They all taste horrifically bad. At a student party, I once tried I think it was called like norrländska beska droppar, which means like bitter drops from the north that was like created from the anal glands of beavers and then like turned into a strong alcohol. And
Castor oil?
that
Castor oil was used in this?
almost like it was the worst thing I've ever tasted in my entire life. And the entire student party had one, and then beer.
Gotta
So
love.
it's this awful mixture between like liquor and beer,
Yeah.
the things you're not supposed to mix.
Whenever it comes to European liquor, there's two things I hate, which is one, actually, I think it's just one thing, which is that everyone's like the love of like anise flavored stuff. Like, God, there's this like French liquor that you like, they like pour it in, it's like orange, and then you put water in it. It turns to this like cloudy orange thing, and it tastes awful. But yeah, somebody just asked what is grog besides it being a euphemism for alcohol, and what it is grog is watered down rum because on sailing ships, the water that you were given was in a barrel in the hold for months, possibly weeks at a time. So it would get like grimy and full of algae, and it would be possibly, in fact, like tainted. So it would taste like shit and be dangerous. So what they did is everybody got a ration of rum at the same time, and in order to both make the water taste a little bit more palatable and to stretch out your rum supply, you would pour your rum into your water and you would drink that, and that's grog. Eventually, people got used to it, and then they kind of like started adding stuff to it and that kind of thing. So, but that's how it started.
Yeah.
Beaver anise flavoring. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. You know where the gland is on the end.
Too.
It's weird
It
because
straight up tasted like it. Like it was horrifically bad.
castor oil is supposed to be the like natural ingredient that's behind like artificial vanilla.
Yeah, it did not taste like it.
That's wild.
It was it's one of the most bitter things I've had in my entire life. Got you tipsy though.
Yeah. Our alcohol culture here is just like America. Weak beer and although we have
Yeah, I taste American beer. It's like straight up water.
what we'll do is we'll shit on American beer, and then our like major brands of beer are exactly the same. So the only thing that we have unique is Screech, but that is specific to Newfoundland, and Newfoundlander culture is sort of its own thing. Which was apparently this absolutely awful tasting, like low tier rum that in the triangular trade, like in the Atlantic trade routes, they would offload onto poor Newfoundlanders because they were just like poor fishermen who didn't have anything else to get. So ships coming up from Jamaica, because British Empire, they would sell this like absolute shit tier rum to people, and the Newfoundlanders called it Screech. And then for a long time, there was like a thing called being screeched in, which was that they had to make new people to Newfoundland drink Screech to kind of like initiate them to the province or to the island. And you have to kiss a codfish too, as well.
Oh, that's just reminds me of home.
Yeah. But now apparently Screech is just like a high quality, like it's now a just nice Jamaican rum. Which that's fun. So thank you for the $5 super chat, Shigekiteki. I'm sorry about that, but Mia, your content has helped me so much in starting my transition with a healthier concept of myself. Step back history, your videos are amazing too. Thank you.
Nice.
Didn't Thought Slime say that stuff was basically hazing? Yeah. He's from Newfoundland, and so it's yeah. I mean, what else would that be but hazing?
Culture, the more weird it is.
Sorry?
The more I hear about Canadian culture, the more weird I find it to be. It's like a weird mix of mostly American and a little bit of like Scandinavian culture, just a tiny bit.
Yeah, we're a weird one. We're like this weird, like we were like mostly like a British identity and had a much more British culture until like the late 80s, early 90s. And then because of NAFTA, like American corporations sort of took over the country. So now, like a generation later, it's like we're like this weird mix of like American culture with weird Britishisms, and I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah, we're odd, and then also just like a lot of French influence. And Newfoundland is actually primarily made up of Irish and Scottish immigrants. So Newfoundland is kind of based in the sense that it's kind of an idea of what would an island nation look like if you had Britain but without England.
Ah, blessed.
That is the blessed island. That is Valhalla. That is heaven. That is paradise.
Literally, the first thing I imagined was, do you know the scene in The Simpsons where the lawyer says like, "Could you imagine a world without lawyers?" And in his imagination, there's just like people of all races and religions just dancing together in the streets.
Yep. That does remind me. Before we move on to the next question, I want to show you something that I 150% am going to make like a thousand. Did you see Twitter today? The Simpsons TV.
Oh, that one. Yeah, yeah, I saw that.
So I looked it up, and you can make it with. It's basically you just need 3D printer and some Raspberry Pi and some fucking around with that. And so as soon as he releases the STL for that, and like he said he's making a tutorial on how to make those. I have like at least 3 people in my life who I need to make those for. I love Raspberry Pi stuff like that. But basically what it is, it's a 3D printed Simpsons TV with 2 dials on it. And when you turn it on, the computer is basically always playing randomly shuffled episodes of The Simpsons from the first 11 seasons on loop. And so for most people, most of like people like, you're my age who grew up where The Simpsons was just always on TV somewhere at some time, just kind of playing. It's perfect. I would love to have I would love to always have The Simpsons running in the background where I can just like look over and see what's going on.
Yeah, I need that sort of like, I need that nostalgia a little bit.
Yeah.
Come home from work. Flip 2 channels and always have Simpsons running.
Be perfect. Okay. Now here's a really good one. It's a question just for you, and I am very curious to see where this goes. Mia, I know there's no one solid answer to this question, but who do you think killed Olaf Palme?
Oh, the CIA, 100%.
All right.
Like 100%.
That was easy.
If I had to prove it, I would have a hard time doing that because the Swedish police has had a hard time doing it for a long time. But they have like one person. I know what's it called. There was one person who has been like strongly suspected of being being the shooter, Christer Pettersson, and I fully believe that he was, if not like hired by, I feel like he was definitely sort of influenced by some operatives. And the person killed Olof Palme is like a big. Used to be a huge Swedish prime minister who's like really put Sweden on the sort of like front and center stage. Stood up to the U.S. and funded the Viet Cong during the Vietnam War, which is fun from a neutrality standpoint because he saw the war in Vietnam as an act of imperialism, and he didn't like that. And then he also like stood up to the Soviets a few times. He was just like, stop doing wars. It's not great. And the U.S. like does some like small tacit like attempts to like shut him up a little bit, or like to like bully him down so he doesn't criticize the Vietnam War. They cut diplomatic connections for like a year, which is like a pretty big thing, especially during the Cold War. That like one of the superpowers are not going to talk to you anymore. And knowing now about all the weird shit that they did in Europe during that time, like all of the different sort of like, in case of Soviet invasion, agents that they had planted around, all of the various like satellite no, that's called like espionage networks that they had. Like they for sure had him killed because he was a troublemaker.
Damn. Wasn't there something
That's
about
my theory.
him? Wasn't there something like not the CIA, but like the South African Army did it or something?
Yes, because during the so like if we're gonna go deep into the thing, I did they were almost definitely involved as well. Um,
Your tinfoil horned helm.
I have it. Um,
If you ever
what's it
make a
called?
video about who killed Olaf Palme, you need to take like the horned Viking helmet and then cover it with tinfoil.
Yeah. Um, I need to do that actually. I have a Viking helmet somewhere. I have a lot of helmets now. Um, no, but like because Sweden gave money to the organization that Nelson Mandela worked with. What was that called? I don't remember what it was called. But
Who? Sorry?
do you remember the organization that Nelson Mandela worked with?
The African National Congress?
That's the one. Yeah, because Sweden gave like tons of support to that thing, um, and Nelson Mandela like really loved that support because I think Sweden was like the number one like funds contributor to them, even when they were sort of classed as a terrorist organization. Um, and like I'm just saying that there's a lot of people with very sophisticated espionage networks, and who have a record of doing very unsavory things to like fuel their interests. Who had an interest in making Olof Palme shut up, and he didn't do that. So strange gunman never catching the killer. Honestly, Christer Pettersson, the guy long suspected of being the guy, he was never really charged for the crime because they didn't have enough evidence. And there's a part of me that thinks it's like, what if he's just a scapegoat? What if the what if the CIA just like found a guy that like didn't have an alibi, didn't have any good things, just like just pinned it on him sort of so that that's where the suspicions would be because that's the only lead that they had. Olof Palme leaves a movie theater and gets randomly shot on the street, and they never catch the guy in the middle of Stockholm street. That's not the act of a one random of like a guy, especially a guy that they caught.
You need
That's
your
the
court
job
cord.
like I definitely do need it. Like that's the work of trained assassins.
Yeah.
That's
Not
my
everybody
theory.
can just wander out of a like what's it called? Wander out of a sandwich shop and have your assassin target just be right there after having a heavy drink because you failed to assassinate that same person earlier that day.
Listen,
We're not all that
sometimes
lucky.
it does happen.
Someone just said that your
See, no, sorry.
someone just said that your YouTube channel is a psyop to support your helmet collecting habit.
Yes. That's not even a joke. That's just straight up true. I've bought more hats than I used in my videos. I bought a Roman Centurion helmet that I used for 1 second for a joke, and I don't think anyone actually saw it. And I got it because I wanted it.
I bought a volleyball for like a one-off joke for one video, and now I just have a volleyball forever.
I love buying props.
It's true. I'm like, it's a business expense. I can buy stupid shit all I want.
I can write off my taxes. That's
Yeah.
how taxes work, right? Just write off. No one pays
Um,
for it. It's free.
The next question we got here is why was the UK able to have so many popular gay rock stars in the 70s, 80s, and 90s?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I feel like there was a bit like I feel like there was like in the pop star scene at that time there was like a big counterculture movement and like being like sexually ambiguous as many people were because like there weren't a lot of people who were like I am gay, but there were more people who were like yeah, you know, and I think that's also a sort of like that's more accepted within a counterculture, especially a counterculture that's like against Like I'm just thinking like Thatcher and that sort of like wave of anti-LGBT conservatism.
Because the 70s were super gay. Okay.
I think these were hella gay.
Um, the next one. Ooh, this is fun. Which of your videos was the most annoying to make?
Um, do you want to answer first? I don't know.
So it depends upon what you mean by annoying. Um, to make so annoying to make. So I think the one that was the biggest pain in the ass was either my Puerto Rico video, because my Puerto Rico video, I was learning how to use a whole bunch of new technology and I had just moved. So a lot of that stuff was a pain in the butt to like figure out what I was doing. Um, Gosh, I think that would be that sticks out as the main one. As for like research stuff, I'd probably say it was the Nestor Makhno video, because Nestor Makhno, as a historical figure to research, is one of those people where every single detail of his life has like semi-reputable historians saying two exact opposite facts about his life. Like literally everything about his life, because he was both a communist and an anarchist, meant that Soviet historians tried to make him out to be this like fascist anti-Semite, despite the fact that it was the 1920s. And he killed people. He killed like what's it called? People for anti-Semitism. But then also he was a communist, so all of the like capitalist writers wrote about him as this like, you know, angry anti-communist revolutionary, when he wasn't that either, or making him out to be like kind of like a Ukrainian nationalist icon, when like nationalism was like the furthest thing from his desires. And so like yeah, Nestor Makhno probably has the most amount of like both sides of the when you try to do a figure that both sides of the Cold War are trying to vilify for different reasons, then you end up with like the most bullshit history written about one person. And it's taken like a long time for like, I don't know, like for Nestor Makhno scholarship to actually be anything resembling accurate. How about
That's a pretty
you?
good answer. I think honestly it may have been my video on my video on the left and trans women, because I had just that's researching that was just a bit of a slog, because I talked a bit like how the left has a tendency of like putting trans people on like on trans women specifically like on a pedestal, and then like taking them off whenever it's like convenient, and like putting on and off over and over again, which is like very like uncomfortable and like not healthy. Um, and researching that was a bit annoying, but it was also, I think the annoying for me here was just like I had so much technical issues with that video. My camera was like dying at that point.
Wasn't that
Uh,
the was that the Raven video?
no, the Raven video was like a way older one.
Oh,
But there may have been a bit of Raven in that actually. I don't remember. It was a while ago, but yeah, that's the last video I shot on my old camera, and I hate my old camera like with a passion at this point, because I spent some money on a 4K camera thinking that would like improve my sort of like video production, and literally all that it did was like it has the worst like light sensor that I've ever seen in a camera. So no matter what light you put up on it, like no matter how well you lit it or however whatever you did, it would always turn out grainy, like a little bit. Like
oh god, that's
that.
annoying.
That was very annoying. But then I got a new camera, and now all my videos are good. So
Yeah. I also just remembered that there was another really annoying one that I used to do, which is that there was this one point where I filmed with my phone, where like I had
Mm-hmm.
my phone hooked up to like a USB adapter so I could like film and put it onto a USB key. But like phones have this sort of like adaptive frame rate technology, which means that the frame rate can increase or decrease depending to basic. It's basically so that because your phone doesn't have a whole lot of CPU power, so it can like up or down the frame rate to basically manage all of the multitasking it's doing. But what it means is that if you record the audio separate, the audio just gets more and more out of sync as the video moves on, and so you can just feel it getting more and more out of sync over time, and it's not like in any like useful way to so that like you can be like, okay, yeah, here I just need to make an adjustment, and
Mm-hmm.
then so later on you just end up with like, oh yeah, well now it's gotten so far out of sync that I'm noticing, so now I can move it a little bit, and editing that stuff was some of the most time consuming annoying shit in my life.
I can only imagine.
Okay, let's see what we got here. Oh boy. Okay. The other day, Lance from the Surfs went on the worst year ever to talk about murderous indigenous schools, and the land back movement came up. Made a point of saying that the tribes don't want their land back so they can throw out all the non natives. They mainly want it back so they can try to manage the environment better than the Canadian government seems capable of. That kind of made me wonder, are you saying giving them land back is good because they're entitled to what was taken from them? Or are you saying it's good because you think they'll do a better job of taking care of the land? Like, suppose they wanted land back so they can throw everybody out and strip mine it. Would you support them getting it back? It's a weird hypothetical, but okay. So there's a couple things. So yeah, there is the one thing, which is that if we want to meaningfully address climate change in Canada, we do need to work with Indigenous people, because one of the main reasons is because the only governments in North America that have taken climate change in any way seriously have been Indigenous governments, have been like, you know, the Indigenous tribal governments. So that's like one of the reasons of doing that. Then there's also, yeah, decolonization is another issue. I would say that, like, saying something that is important for two reasons. Like, then it's like hypothetical. If indigenous people, would you give land back to them to just do strip mining? And it's like, I mean, that's not a very easy question to answer, but also, yeah, it's not an issue that I have to deal with right now, so I'm not gonna. But yeah, like the land back movement is an idea of trying to decolonize Canada and the United States by giving back, especially a lot of the public land that's still, like, Canada is still mostly public land, giving it back to the indigenous nations it was taken from, along with like different other projects to try and return land that was taken from indigenous people back to indigenous people through like right of first refusal and all these other things. Because and part of the reason is because it's the right thing to do, it's the just thing to do, and the other is because they are much more responsible with taking care of the precious natural resources of this continent than our colonial governments are. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I don't think you can meaningfully do socialism in a settler colonial country without doing decolonization.
Yeah.
So,
I
that.
think that's a good answer. Yeah.
Next is okay. I this is a name. This is a person or name, or actually I'm not exactly sure what they are, but this is a name that's been coming up, and I don't know how to answer it because I can't really say much. But how should leftists, particularly queer leftists, talk about Chris Chan?
Oh, easy. We don't.
Okay, well that was
Super
easy.
like I don't know why. Like I okay. Um Here we go. Hot take. I have first of all, I have sort of like intentionally like not engaged in whatever recent drama is happening. I don't want to know. I'm like um I don't want to know. It's literally harmful for me to hear anything about this drama for so many reasons. Um, but why is this person important? Like to anyone outside of like meme culture online, and to the people in this person's immediate vicinity. Like who gives a shit? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I had the same thing with I had sort of the same take with the other. There was like a trans. I think what was it called, Jessica Yaniv or something like that. I also didn't care about them because um because no, and again, I don't know the drama here, right? So I don't know the details, but from what I've gathered is that these people are outliers, and it doesn't matter for any type of politics. Like why should leftists care about this person or about Jessica Yaniv? Like, why? Why should trans people care about these? I haven't seen anyone who's like the only reason why these people are important is because some meme culture people have decided that they are, and I don't.
So does that mean Chris
So
Chen is a trans person? I don't. I literally don't. I just see the name and that's
I
it. I don't know anything about them.
I don't know either, to be honest. Again, intentionally like I have intentionally stayed ignorant on this issue as much as I possibly can. Um, and like like I'm just thinking that like the only reason why it's sort of becoming a more thing now is because like right wingers will take these sort of extreme examples and like paint them as a general picture of the wider community or whatever. Um, but here's the thing, and we know this in all groups, and we know this like in the trans grouping or in lefty group or whatever, that um, in every single group of people that exist, there will be outliers, and there will be people who are just weird, or people who are just like inappropriate, like or criminal or whatever. Like it doesn't. The actions of like one or two individuals just straight up doesn't matter for the greater discourse. And I think that the best thing we can do about this is like sort of choose to not engage with it, because the only reason why people on the far right, for example, bring it up is because they want to use it to provoke, and the only people why meme culture do it is because they find enjoyment by like having a controversial topic be enjoyed, be discussed. So and how you win against both of those positions is don't give them the time of day to discuss it, because like that's exactly what they want.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, then, on that note,
That's my hot take.
sounds good to me. This okay. This next question kind of speaks a lot to how much we've kind of backslid when it comes to some stuff. So this is fun. Now we're getting into all sorts of fun discussions. Okay, there's an early episode of a TV show called The Fairly Odd Parents. Okay, I think this was a lot for my time.
I've heard of the show.
Where Timmy accidentally wishes to be a girl and spends the episode as a girl. If that was made today rather than 2003, do you think the right would claim it was Nickelodeon pushing the, quote, trans agenda on kids?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like, it was... It's like, it reminds me of this really old Lindsay Ellis line, which is when they're talking about, like, some older piece of media, and they're like, wow, this piece of work was, like, really progressive on gay rights. It was really, or trans rights. It was really ahead of its time. And she was just like, no, it was very much of its time. It's ahead of our time. And it's like, yeah. There's like it's kind of mind blowing how much, in some ways, social justice progress has been both made and how much it's retreated in the last like 6-7 years.
Yeah. I have a thing that I'm probably going to talk a little bit about in my upcoming video about how like legally in most places things have become like a tiny bit better for trans people. In like the healthcare system and like legal recognition, like those things have become a tiny bit easier from the time of like 2003, for example. But the cultural acceptance has backslid so much, like such an extreme amount. Like I remember even in like sure in 2003 like there were still like transphobic media and stuff like that, but like most of that was born out of ignorance. Still sucks, still pretty bad, but it's like it hits different from when there is just like
Hatred.
malicious transphobia. Yeah, exactly. Like dedicated hatred. Um, like I just remember from being like my early transition in like 2012. Like most people that I talked to had never even considered the existence of trans people generally, and because they hadn't been taught what to think about it, most of them were just like, "Oh, well, you seem fine, so guess that's fine." And that was sort of like the baseline. But now the baseline is becoming more and more like it's controversial topic.
Yeah, it's not to like take it off topic, but that's actually was one of the thesis. That was the thesis of one of my American Studies master's paper. My master's thesis for American Studies was that Islamophobia, basically 9/11 was moving from Islamophobia from a sort of prejudice based out of ignorance, based on like that, like early times there was like a prejudice based off ignorance, and then it turned into a prejudice based off of hatred, and that the hatred
Yeah.
was getting worse over time, not better. And I was saying that like Islamophobia is worse at the time I was writing it, which was the summer of 2014, than it was in 2001, where you had like the president officially saying that, this is not a war against Islam. Islam is a beautiful religion. And then in 2016, you had the what would be the president saying Islam hates us, and it was like, okay. But I wrote that in 2014, and literally the month the video came out was when ISIS declared its caliphate, and I was like, oh shit.
Oh, great.
Fun. Okay, what do we got next? Okay. Mia, last week you said that the main people we should blame for Trump or Brexit and the voters who knew the consequences but voted for the shitty option anyway. Is that like all Trump Brexit voters or just a subset of them? Like, I'm pretty sure my grandfather just voted for Brexit because he doesn't use the internet or do research and thought the crap the tabloids told him about Brussels regulations holding back the UK. Do you think there are many people like him?
No, oh, 100%. There's definitely, and I think I said during that stream also that like we're not gonna that we shouldn't blame all of them, but there is a subset of Brexit voters and Trump voters who are informed enough and like politically engaged enough and like aware enough of the consequences of those actions and what they're doing. Like for example, like the thousands of people involved in like the tabloids, for example, in the UK, um, spreading lies about how Brexit is going to be, and that like there is like the far more burden of blame, like by 1,000 times like weight, in my opinion.
Makes
Like
sense.
a lot of people just vote for from like as a sort of like identity point of view, whatever like their community votes, and they'll sort of like go with the flow. And I don't think that's great to do, but at the same time, like not everyone can be super engaged in everything all the time. We all do this subconsciously as well. So I think that um, like I don't think those are the enemy. Even though like those people are like like the wrong side or whatever, I don't think that they are like the enemy that we should like focus our like attention towards. Those people should be the people who knowingly like spread and influence votes in a very uh in a very like deceptive manner. Um because those people like they know what they're doing, they know what they're doing is wrong, but they do it anyway. And those people are the things that we can. I think you can. I think you can also convince like quite a lot of like Brexit voters, for example, that like those people lied to you. Instead of like alienating like fishermen, for example, I've seen a lot of people on Reddit doing this, where like fishermen vote for Brexit and now they can't sell fish. Boo-hoo, leopards ate my face. Um, but I think you can convince like a lot of those people that like, hey, we have way more in common than what you have from like the people at the tabloids because they lied to you, or like the people in like pro Brexit camps because they lied to you. Like the thing that you voted for, um, you weren't able to make an informed electoral decision because you weren't given the correct information, uh, and then you can ally with those people a bit better.
Yeah, makes sense. And I mean, you could just be like, listen, I hate Belgium too. And if all I knew was that this was going to stop Belgium from ruining your country, then I would get that.
Yeah,
Solidarity. No one likes Belgium.
Anti-Belgian.
That's why they put the EU headquarters there, because it was the country all Europeans could agree they hated the same amount. Um, so yeah,
yeah.
people are usually too proud to admit they've been deceived. This is true. Admitting you were wrong is basically the hardest thing to do.
Yeah. But it is, I think that is sort of where I think that's sort of one of the like ground level electoralism that we sort of have to do. Um, which is why I also think it's very important for people on the left to admit when they're wrong, because otherwise we're just going to have two opposing opinions where no one ever backs down, which just reinforces your own belief that like I'm not going to admit that I'm wrong because they never do. And which is why I think it's actually sometimes a point of strength within like a lot of leftist circles, when they can admit that they're wrong. They can admit that like they did something weird, because that usually, at least in Swedish politics, I've noticed, that gets a lot of respect from people from other like ideological camps. They see that someone's like standing up for their own convictions, but also like taking responsibility, something that like no other political group is doing. And if the left can sort of like monopolize that, like the responsible politician, I think that can be like a very powerful movement, in my opinion.
Yeah. All I was talking about, like, you made a smart answer, and I just talked about how Belgium is the Millhouse of Europe.
Oh, I definitely think that we could also organize just against Belgium,
Yeah.
like 100%. They deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
Anti-Brussels election.
Yeah. What's it called? Like, carbs are bad for you. And what does Belgium put into the world? Chocolate? Waffles?
Things are pretty cool though.
Suppose.
Fuck.
They're
Is Belgium
poisoning
cool?
us. Oh, do we have to go the other way? Because we know everybody hates Belgium, so now we have to like viciously defend Belgium.
Oh no.
I love
Oh,
Tintin. Tintin, so good.
I love the Treaty of London.
Flemish is a beautiful language and doesn't sound like somebody gargling on a cat. It doesn't sound like... I don't know, I'm trying to find something else. Okay, let's see if we can get one more question in. Yesterday I watched a debate, well, there's your first mistake, between a libertarian and a socialist. Scandinavia inevitably came up. The libertarian asserted that Sweden is a free market society and claimed both the pension and school system in Sweden are entirely privatized.
That's not true.
He claimed the school system in Sweden works entirely by vouchers. What, if anything, is the truth behind that?
None of that is true, like at all. There, like in the school system, like you could say that there is some correct there, but like the vast majority of schools are still state-owned, and there is a voucher system involved in that, but it's not like it doesn't really impact as much as you would think. Um, the way private companies are in schools now is that the government just gives companies a bunch of money and then they start a school themselves and they get to pocket like if they manage to like save on costs, they get to pocket the profits. Which sucks ass. But it's not this sort of like super privatized libertarian dreamscape that people think it is, that this person thinks it is. And pensions are not privatized at all, like whatsoever. I mean, I guess you can have a pension at a bank, but like the vast majority of pensions are from what you pay into it from taxes. And you also have a base like a foundational pension that like everyone gets based on how many years you've been working. So there's like three levels of pension in Sweden. There's like the one that everyone gets. It's one that if you make a lot of money, you get a bit more pensions. But that still goes from taxes. That's not something that you have to like pay into or like set up yourself. And then like if you really want to, you can get like an additional third pension private on top of those two, but only the very rich people do that because those are the only ones who can afford it and even need it because most people are fine with the first two. So none of that is true.
Yeah, they like you saw earlier. Like Swedes can't even make vodka without the government getting involved, and you can get government sandwiches from the store.
Even our privatized school system is still like run on taxpayer money.
They found a way to make public private schools.
Yeah, kinda.
God damn.
Yeah. So like if you're looking for like some libertarian shit, you're not gonna find it here.
No, everything is
If you want
government.
if you want high taxes, you should come here. I pay so much fucking tax.
Okay. I was supposed to say the next question's a bit long, so we might not be able to answer it. So we could let's see. We got 2 minutes. I guess we could start by introducing, telling everybody in the internet where to find your content. That should probably be what we do next.
Oh yeah, you can go to Mia Mulder. Will take you to my YouTube channel. My most recent video is about maps and a geolocation app that I don't like, which is not even close to relevant to my other type of content, but it's also my most successful video ever. So I don't know what YouTube wants anymore. You can find my tweets on twitter.com/potatopolitics, and you can find my streams on twitch.tv/Mia Mulder, where I stream occasionally. And you can listen to my podcast that I do with a good friend about medical history, which is a bit more down to earth, where we talk about actual history. I think our most recent episode is about Chernobyl, and we have an episode coming out soon about the history of LSD. So that's.
I actually recently listened to the episode on space medicine, and it was very fun. So,
oh, did you?
Yes.
Oh, I'm glad.
You guys had a lot of fun talking about all the ways that space kills you. The second you don't have gravity, your body just dies.
Your body just like falls apart.
Yeah, and also about how NASA's health program was just started off by Nazis. Pretty sure there was some Nazi shit in Tintin, by the way. Oh yeah. Tintin was fucked up. Tintin's got some awful like racist shit when it comes to do with the Belgian Congo and stuff too. So it's bad. It's bad. Tristan, go on. Well, there's your problem. I would.
Yes.
I'm waiting.
They should invite you. It's very fun.
Yeah, I'm not going to push for it because that would be rude, but I would say yes if that happened.
Wonderful.
Okay, and we're going to go and raid MX Emily. Everybody, it's been real. I'll be back tomorrow night. I'm going to go do research, I think is what I'm doing next.
I love research.
And I'll see you later.